Now, without further delay, we'd like to begin our guest speaker from the Philippines, Associate Professor J.P. Picado. Today, he will be presenting about mentoring biology students to win in research competitions, experiences, and insights. So, everyone, please welcome. Thank you.
Good day. Today, I'll be presenting a paper entitled Mentoring Biology Students to Win in Research Competitions and Publish Scientific Papers, Experiences and Insights from a Biology Professor of Cebu Normal University, Cebu City, Philippines. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am J.P. Cardal, and I'm an Associate Professor teaching research in the undergraduate biology program of my university. So to start with, the outline of my presentation will start with a brief background about the study, about the topic, and then followed by motivations of mentoring undergraduate students in biology. This is also followed by characteristics of the research mentor and best practices in mentoring undergraduate students. For the information of everyone, this is still a paper in progress, a working paper that I have been developing in the last couple of months because I believe that this kind of idea, I mean, the best practices that I've been doing as a research mentor and how I was able to facilitate the winning of my students in different research competitions should be told to other teachers, to other faculty members who would also like to explore on this kind of pursuit. Okay, so in the Philippines, it is a widely acknowledged fact that research competitions in life and biomedical sciences, as well as in physical sciences, provides a good platform to enhance scientific literacy and develop future researchers in the country. This is also recognized as a good training ground in the making of future scientists and innovators because if you will see, uh, this kind of competition starts even as early as elementary grade level, followed followed by high school level, and then eventually at the collegiate level of competitions. And and for the basic education curriculum, for instance, this is a nationwide initiative of DepEd to foster these annual competitions in which there are different tier or levels of competition starting from the district going to the division, regional, national, and then eventually to the inter-ISEF competitions at the international level. So to help other schools develop this kind of research culture, um, I will I will discuss the best mentoring practices that I've been following and I've been doing, as well as the various techniques and approaches that are commonly utilized by research mentors in producing successful research competitors. So the following slides are actually just a brief illustration of the winning moments and published manuscript of my students in the biology program. I actually started in 2011 with this group of students, and then they were able to publish in Clarivate Index Analytics Journal. Also, this one winning two competitions, both poster and then paper presentation. Another group of students who won in the region as well as in the national level of competitions. They actually they were became finalists in the national level for presenting a study on the toxicity level of the same spice, cinnamon cebuense. This group of students won in as best poster and first runner-up for a research on anti ulcerative property of cinnamon, the same spice that I've been studying in the past years. Also, the students who work on anti-hyperglycemic effect of cinnamon cebuense. These are also students won in the regional level for the anti-angiogenic studies. And then eventually ecology studies, which are also published in Clarivate Index journals. And then Scopus Index publications this year from my undergraduate advices. Also published in ESCI from the Clarivate Analytics Index, working on teratogenicity of spices. And then eventually, the most recent is the characterization of a river system in Cebu. So as a prelude to the discussion, I asked 10 student researchers who won in their previous research competitions to rate the importance of a number of characteristics that might define a good research mentor. On a scale from 1 to 5 being the highest, my students said that they want a mentor who actually provides time and assistance to them in the design, conceptualization, eventually the conduct of experiment, as well as the writing of the findings, and then generating the conclusion and eventually publishing their paper in an international publication. They also want a mentor who can actually allocate time to answer their queries, even at night. And that's actually quite weird, but that's how our students do it because they are also thinking sometimes new ideas pop up in their mind at night. Then that's why they also want mentors who can actually figure out their weakness, especially in the analysis of data. It's very important. So these are actually the top three characteristics of mentors that we want. That's according to my students. So here I'm going to show you the different motivations that I always instill in my mind whenever I mentor students. The first is actually because I believe that through mentoring, I would be able to train future researchers in life sciences and encourage innovativeness and improve existing technologies through the generation of new knowledge. So all of this research undertaking is geared towards creating something new, creating something unique that could actually be able to help society, be it in pharmaceutical, drug development, conservation of biological resources, conservation of biological diversity, and all of this purpose, noble purpose rather, of doing research, and most importantly, to enhance the academic reputation of our university, of the biology department where I'm working. So these are actually the whole set of motivations that I put into my mind whenever I mentor students in research. So what to me are the characteristics of a good research mentor? I believe that a good research mentor should be genuinely interested in life sciences in general. So I have to practice what I teach. I have to practice what I preach. Then meaning I have to also do research on my own. I have to get funding. I have to publish my own work. I have to do research so that my students would actually see me as somebody who is actually walking the talk. So I always tell myself to be patient all the time and trust the process, and that through this long arduous process of mentoring students, I will be able to see something at the end of the tunnel. Produce students who are competitive enough to disseminate their information in a wider audience. A mentor should also be genuinely happy to share the knowledge to her or his students, because it must be felt by the students that we are actually not 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 how do you call this one, that we are truly motivated deep inside, that we actually want to mentor them, not just because of money, not just because of potential awards that we can get at the end of the day. Okay, and then of course, a mentor should also provide compliment and constructive feedback to our students. So the fifth characteristic is the most important because students are actually sometimes sensitive. They want mentor who actually supportive of whatever they produced and be able to learn from their mistakes. Okay, so some of the best practices in microbiology undergraduate students include the provision of good reading materials, from the fundamentals to the most advanced. We have to assist our students so that by doing so, we would be able to help them identify the gap. What is that something new? What is that novel discovery that they can potentially produce at the end of the research activity? So these are gap analysis that we have to assist them, and it can only be done if we provide them with the good reading materials. Of course, I also highlight scientific method all the time, especially in the establishment and in the proposing of hypothesis, because this hypothesis guide the whole research process. I encourage students, aside from proposing hypothesis, to also ask the right questions, and from that question, they would be able to think what is that question that must be answered. Okay, and also I allow my students to figure out the potential contribution of their paper for society at large. As I said a while ago, whether the application is theoretical, methodological, or the generation of new methods, contextual, meaning um, life realistic experiences of people, whether it's going to be practical applications, all of these potential applications must be highlighted in the paper. I also, whenever I mentor, I also highlight the utilization of research matrix format. This kind of research logic is actually must be followed all the time. How do I do this? For instance, there are three specific objectives. I actually make use this as a checklist by looking at the methods. There must also be three methodology, especially if the objective has different purpose. And then I also look for the results. There must also be three results, and then each result must be supported with statistical tool. Statistical data to be able to support the results, and then it must also be supported with pertinent literatures that could be utilized to compare similar findings in the past, as well as allow my students to create this overarching take-home message from the findings of the study, and finally to be able to also generate future research directions. So by following this research logic, my students actually is guided whether they miss something in the paper. Okay, I also tell my students to always stick to the experimental design, to the experimental plan, the blueprint of the research, especially if it's experimental, whether it's actually done in the laboratory, in greenhouse, or in the field. They must follow proper experimental design, observing replication, interspersion, local error control, proper sampling techniques, and subsampling. Okay, also emphasize to my students the idea about repeatability and reproducibility, meaning in this cartoon character, you would notice that this second scientist is actually trying to emulate what the first scientist is doing. So if this first second scientist can actually produce the same result as the first scientist did, then it means the study is reproducible. This is important because this will actually test and validate the findings of the study. Okay, I also tell my students to optimize research protocol. Exhaust trials and return demo is actually a must in my laboratory. For instance, if it's a mice experiment, I actually allow my students to perform individually so that they would actually know and gain confidence on feeding the mice, on extracting blood. Because if the methodology is consistent, likely the error will be minimal as well. I also make sure that I provide time to assist my students whenever a certain method or protocol do not work or does not work. So I help my students to figure out what's wrong and troubleshoot along the way, and then think whether there's an alternative method that we can use that's also cheaper and that could also be doable in our setting. I also encourage my students to always observe research ethics. If it's actually a biological assay, like using mice models, I also insist that they must secure a Yahoo for permit, as well as if they're using endangered plants to get extracts from. I also insist that they must get secure permit from the Environment Office so that we will not violate any kind of ethics protocol. I let students understand the statistical tool for data analysis. Although we hire statistician in the process, understanding the statistical treatment of the data is important because it will actually help them convince whether the rejection or the acceptance of the hypothesis is valid or not. I also make sure that I establish the sense of independence in them, and then I showed them that I trust them, because of course nobody would like to work 24/7. Okay, so what I mean with scientific independence is that after I teach my students the protocol, or after I show them the step-by-step process, I allow them to do the return demo or execute the process, and then afterwards, if I'm already confident that they can do it on their own, then I leave them. And then I just observe the findings, whether something is wrong or something must be corrected along the process. Most importantly, critiquing of work is essential. I really find time to critique the work of my students, not only the draft, but also in the writing of the manuscript, particularly also the grammar, as well as the correct jargon that we use in the discipline. And most importantly, because this is leading towards research competition. I make sure that we practice, practice, and practice. So practice makes perfect, and I make sure that there's no competition that's going to happen if I wouldn't be able to listen to them presenting their paper and then gaining that level of confidence because they did practice with me listening as well as other professors listening to them and then giving them feedback on what to improve in their presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and that's all for my presentation.
Thank you so much, Professor. Okay, now let's start with a question and answer section, and we have got many questions from our audience. So the first question, let's move to Ms. Janti. The question is, since you mentioned the 6 characteristics of a good research mentor, could you please prioritize them for other mentors? Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I hear
Okay,
you well.
okay, thank you. So the question was, since I mentioned the 6 characters of good research mentor, could you please prioritize them for other mentors? You mean according to the level of importance or the most important? Is that the question?
I think it can be the most important one.
Okay, I think the most important being a mentor is actually to show to your advices or to your students that you are genuinely happy teaching them because you cannot actually fake it even if for instance they see you physically present being available for example in the laboratory but in your face in your facial expression once they approach you they can actually feel whether it is sincere or genuine or not. So to me, I think it worked on me because in the last 9 to 10 years that I've been mentoring researchers, my students felt that I can go extra mile to help them and it shows in the way I talk to them, for instance, in the way how I encourage them, in the way how I teach them, even the most simple protocol in the laboratory. I think that's the most important. Being true. It may sound cliche or it may sound how do you call this one abstract, but to me that is something that must be imbued in us as a mentor, and it should not be faked. Okay, that's actually my answer.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, the next question is from Adrian. What is the background of your mentee in conducting researches?
Sorry. So what is the background of your mentee in conducting researches? Okay, these undergrad students actually came from because I'm teaching in a public university. It's actually a state university, meaning our students belong to the cream of the crop, but they came from middle to low income class families, meaning they cannot actually afford experiments that are expensive, or they cannot afford exorbitant fees in laboratory testing for example. So so I'm actually banking on their innate desire to win. That is something that is not found. I'm not actually generalizing, but I also mentor students who came from wealthy families, for example, and these students just want to pass or they actually just want to get good grades. But the kind of determination to win is something that I'm looking for in a particular mentees. Although I cannot choose whom to mentor because usually it's actually done draw by lots. I just look for that potential personality in each one of them. Okay, and I develop that personality and convert that personality into something that is winnable. Meaning, if previously, for example, they are not that confident in talking and speaking or in conducting experiments, then I capacitate them, and then actually I turn it into something fruitful at the end of the day. So to answer the question, these students are actually just ordinary students. The only thing is that they actually have like average to above average IQ based on the entrance exam that we administer. Usually, the number of takers in our university reach up to like 10,000, and then we just admit approximately 4,000 a year. So you can actually gauge the kind of screening that we have, particularly for each degree program.
Thank you, Professor Jay. Now I think it's time, so I would like to say thank you for sharing a good topic to us today.